Hi everybody, welcome to this session on Healing Houses, Land and Premises. Great, Paul O'Halloran, and thank you for joining us. I'm honoured to be sitting in front of you tonight and to give you some insight, some energy into land and house healing. It's basically what I'm sharing with you is my experience over 30 odd years of doing this. And I still have a little bit of hair left, so I'm not doing too bad. And it's kind of sharing with you my journey and hopefully bringing some light on some situations for some of you and for some healers as well that are out there doing the work. It's important that we all do it. It's important that we share our energy every now and again, because by doing that we're empowering some people to do the work as well, and to everyone that does it in some way indirectly, we're all helping. So tonight, if I go through this and explain to you what's going to be happening on the thing, and excuse me if I make one or two little mistakes. Technology is not my big thing, but sure, we'll try. Melly's under the room there if I need her. Okay, so there's just a little disclaimer to say that we do this work with everyone's best interest at the heart. However, I wish to understand that the staff at Pathway Teaching, we're not medical doctors, and please get proper diagnosis for any health problems if you have them. Lots of times we go out to houses to do the work, and we go there as a support in a way to do the work and to help to heal the energy. But I just say that we're not doctors. Please note that we cannot guarantee any outcome to the healing of houses. We do that healing to the best of our ability. I've done, I think, over 5,000 houses in my time, and don't feel them clacking up. And maybe 8 or 10% of what I've done, sometimes you may have problems. You have to go back, callbacks on some of them or whatever, but very rarely. And there's be one or two that you'd have to walk away and say that you can't do the work, but that's the way the work goes. But majority of them, thank God, have worked out for everyone. land or premises, or any healing techniques are carried out on any individuals. Please realize that if you are to book with us, you're undertaking this journey under your own legal responsibility. Information and options expressed in our books, face sheets, manuals, reports, educational and websites are designed for educational purposes only. Thank you for understanding. That's just a disclaimer, it's just legal stuff. Okay, so this webinar, just before I start the webinar, I was just sitting down this evening, and I have to acknowledge some people on my journey in this thing. The first person that I really connected with in relation to land and house healing was Joe Mullally, when he was up there in Wicklow and Blessington. There was an old woman, God rest her now, Teresa Maloney, who in some way years and years and years ago seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. She lived in Gort, and she dragged me all the ways to Wicklow to do a land and house healing thing and to learn the art of divining. And never caught rods in my hands before and never did anything with them. And it was like driving a donkey and cart, to be honest with you. It worked. Then Martin Duffy in Dundee, who was my teacher, my shamanic teacher after that for a while, and who helped me immensely on my journey as well, and helped me to understand myself in a way. And that's another story, because that's a shamanic story. Between the runs and the throws of when I started doing land and house healing, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I read a book by David Furlan, Healing with Earth Energies, and I found then there was a man that at least knew that might understand me. So I rang him, brought him to Ireland, and we did a heavy week intensive with him, and a lot of work, and an absolute gentleman, I must say. And then, of course, there was Peter van Mantis in South Africa, who I did a lot of shamanic training with, and also did land and house healing work with. And we shared a lot of techniques, and he showed me stuff, and hopefully I showed him some stuff. And then there was, of course, Amanda Collins. I call her the Feng Shui Guru. She taught me Feng Shui and gave me another tool. Now, I'm not a Feng Shui expert, I'm not a Feng Shui consultant, but made me aware of other aspects of energy with the houses. And basically, if I come across problems in the houses, I bring Amanda, and I recommend Amanda to them. She's unbelievable. She's worked all over the world, and she was a great teacher. So that's just to say thank you to all these people, and in some way, in a lot of ways, they helped to put me together to do this work in some whatever way. So why do houses, land, premises need healing? Well, first time this came to me when I started off on my shamanic journey a long time ago. One of the messages I got from Spirit was that I was going to be healing houses. And way back then I said, yeah, you cracked or crazy. Who'd want their houses healed, and who'd be looking for someone like me with a pair of rods? But, you know, it brought me to that space. But people want land and houses and healing and things done like that with their land for lots and lots of reasons, and we'll be exploring that in a little while. What are the telling symptoms that a place needs in healing? How do we know that you have a problem in your house? Just straight off the thing before I go into the notes, one of the big things for me is when someone rings me up about, their house, there's something wrong. The first question I ask them, how do you know? And invariably, 90% of the answer is, it doesn't feel right. I feel there's something wrong. That's intuition speaking. Always go with that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Something has to be done about it. Different types of energies that cause imbalances in the home or the land. These we'll be going through these in detail in a little while. We'll be talking about them. I just have some little notes here. I just want to make sure I get you everything. And some of these I was taught by person. I was taught by my teachers, and other times you would be taught by Spirit, because sometimes you go onto a situation or onto a premises or a land, and something would come up that you hadn't faced before, or else whatever little hair you had on your head would be standing on it, and you said, what the hell am I doing here? was going to happen. But that was the time the Spirit was going to come through. There was a teaching in it for you. How do we deal with it? You know, what do? We talk through some techniques and different ways that we operate and we do the work. And then at the end, hopefully a question and answer session. If I haven't answered the questions initially for you in the seminar and in the session, we'll take questions at the end, and Melody's out there manning them, and we'll see what will happen. Please don't be afraid to ask the questions. This is a beautiful poem that I just want to share with you, that was brought to my notice, or shared with me when I did the Feng Shui course with Amanda. Where there's light in the soul, there's beauty in the person. Where there's beauty in the person, there's harmony in the home. Where there's harmony in the home, there's honor in the nation. Where there's honor in the nation, there's peace in the world. I so believe in that, and I so hope that in all the places I've been doing all through the years and places I will be doing, that we can bring harmony to the home in our little way, and in that way we bring harmony to our nation and to any nation we work in. Through that, maybe peace to the world, and God knows it's needed. I always believe that this poem resonates with me a lot, is that when we do the work, no matter what little way we do the work, be it through intention or be it through act, deed or ceremony, that every time we do something from the heart and with the intention to bring goodness and blessings and healing to the people that need it, or to the land, or wherever it is, we make a difference. We change the vibration. So we're bringing harmony in a way to the land, to the home. And through that, you know, we're bringing it to our nation and hopefully to the world. And that to me is a beautiful thing. I think that's what keeps me going. So just a little note on another thing on Feng Shui that that happens when we're doing the houses. And only for Amanda, I wouldn't know this, but there's 4 different types of houses. There's Wang Shang, Wang Shi, there's double facing, there's double facing, double sitting, and reverse houses. So sometimes when a house, it can be good for people, good for money. It can be bad for people and good for money. It can be bad for money and good for people, and it can be bad for both. So sometimes we can face this as well. And that's just a little tool that I was blessed to receive from her. So that it makes me aware, but it can always be fixed by putting in remedies. So, okay, why do we need to do it? Why do we need to do a land and house healing? What's the need for it? Disconnection from spirit, going back as far as the fall of Atlantis. Harmony, love, all these things. And to me, disconnection is the big thing from the Mother Earth. And in Ireland and long ago as well, when the medicine started to get contaminated, let's say, the medicine was hid. So then gradually there was a disconnection from the land and from place. And the indigenous people will teach you all the time that they are one with all, and they have harmony with the beautiful medicine that they're with. Often if you're in America or even in Canada, and you're in place, in situ, in place, just tune into the energy there, because simply the white man hasn't been in these countries long enough. Now, he's done enough damage in it, but he hasn't been in these countries long enough to actually destroy the medicine as to the disconnection that's here in, say, in Europe and other places like that. So, like, you know, things would have been going gradual disconnection for a while. But say about 150, 200 years ago, when industrialization came in and all that thing and machinery came in, and even like you watch farmers on the land now, they're on little tractors or on machinery all the time. Nothing is done. They don't walk the farms anymore, and people are too busy working. They just come home, they do the thing, their family, and they're in bed and gone again the next morning. There's disharmony and no connection with the place. So to me, that's a big, big, big thing, and it's bringing back that connection. You know, everything we have, clothes are on our back, the walls, the beds, everything, the food, everything comes from the Mother Earth, and we don't show it honor. Disrespect and greed, just taken from the earth all the time. It's all about taking the petroleum out, taking the gold out, taking everything out of the earth. And every time they go into the earth, we'll be discussing it later in greater detail, they crack the crystal body of the earth and they open up things. They open cracks above the ground and they open cracks below the ground. A lovely little story. I was out walking with my son yesterday, Melanie and Sophia, and we were walking along a bank of a dry river. It was beautiful, flowers on it, and there was a bee. He was on a flower taking some honey, and Melanie said to Kai, said, "Look at the bee, he's taking honey." And he bent over and he said to the bee, "Thank you so much, bee. I am so thankful for you bringing the honey home to make beautiful honey for me." And I was just saying, there's humility, there's gratitude. We would just walk by and pass it. But the bee, he loves his honey, by the way, and he loves Willie O'Toole's honey. Willie, who does the fires in Oranmore, makes honey, and that's the honey for Kai. But I just thought, like, hopefully you'll grow up like that and you won't forget that little bit of humility and that little bit of gratitude. And even in that moment, I was saying, gee, he's teaching me to be thankful and to observe. And if everyone had the attitude like that, we would take lots of things are linked to environmental problems, pollution, habitat, deforestation, climate change, invasive species, and technology. Now, in my experience with pollution, what happens sometimes in the souterrains of the rivers that run underground that I deal with, where the frequencies are imbalanced, sometimes it be caused by pollution, and different things it can be caused by, but it adds to the thing with geopathic stress. Habit loss has to do, with all the concrete buildings we're building. It's like the Indians would say, the white man comes to America, for example, and he builds concrete roads to get him nowhere fast, to take him from one concrete city to another. So we're losing, there's habitat, nature, deforestation being lost, being pushed out because we're concreting and building solid structures. And in doing that, we again will cause them cracks in the auritic field. I call them the crystal body, and we're calling cracks beneath the earth, or with the rivers that are already down there, we're distorting the energies of the frequencies that were in harmony and in balance. Climate change and invasive species then as well would be to do with balance, where like in the seas, for example, Melanie is a marine biologist, and he often tells me about how all the jellyfish have come to the top now, and the reason they've come to the top is because the things that eat them, the other fish that eat them, are gone in a way. So it's a knock-on effect. So it's imbalance, and again, it's a technologies has to do with. For me, it's really electromagnetic energies, the pylons, and all that heavy energy that works. Of course, lots of people are talking at the minute about the 5G and the cause it has on the thing. But I can tell you that when you get geopathic stress, my experience, geopathic stress and electromagnetic in the one area and the one field. It's a cocktail for disaster, really. It's a stew for sickness, because there's a famous story I'll tell you a little later about a young fella. So why do we need to heal these houses and the land? The environment is strictly linked to the consciousness and the connection of self. We've ultimately unbalanced the energy of Mother Earth. Like everything is connected like a chain of a bike. But when we build, we dig deep into the ground now with big diggers. We have all these machines that go ding, 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 ding down into the ground. And what it's doing is creating disharmony and disconnection, so that we are shattering the energy and massive imbalance. We are disconnected, and then we're disconnected from the land. Like, you look at your fathers, grandfathers, how they walked the land, how they cared for it. I remember one time a fella telling me how maybe 10 years ago, how he still digs with the spade. And when he's digging with the spade, he's aware of the different colours clay that's in the land. So it gives him the information of the different fertility and the different things that's in the land, and how to work with it. So the environment is balanced in a way, and it doesn't take much to put that out. So when we create this harmony in it and unbalance in the Mother Earth, we create it ourselves. Quite simple. We are the problem. We're also the solution. We also have the solutions. The two-legged on the planet at the minute are the problem, really. We're in this world where it's work, and there's no connection, there's no meditation, there's no time out to be ourselves or to connect with things. Like, for example, long ago, when people look for planning permission, it's well known in the geopathic field and this field, they'd watch the cows in the field. Where they lay, they knew the energy was good, or the horses. The other thing they used to do was put up 4 poles, and if they were knocked in the morning, they knew that the fairies didn't want them to build in that place. And I'll be going into that later on to explain that in a way to you, because believe you me, that's the thing. The ants and the bees, they love negative energy, and they'll sleep on vortexes and on the different ley lines that cause sickness and cause stuff. So will cats. Cats lay forever in it. Sometimes when you're clearing out a house, the old cat will be the one that'll be the most upset, which are, you've done the job right then. And why do we heal houses, and why do they need it? Why do houses, land and premises need healing? You see, you like your man there. It's nice, isn't it? You don't know where he came out of. Again, as I say, unbalanced energies that we've created through industry, through greed, through our disconnection and our disconnection from the earth. We're not listening to it. We're not looking at it. Look, a simple thing, cutting down a tree. Lots of people would do that. And, around, say spring now gone or whatever, people who might be pruning or cutting down trees out of the way. But, the tree has a spirit, the tree has an energy. And really, before you cut it down, you should ask the tree, and you should work with it. And when working with the tree, if you're taking the tree out, you buy another little tree, a little sapling, and you plant it somewhere, and you ask the spirit of the tree to go to that tree. So, that's bringing balance, and that's working with the energy inside, besides just destroying something and, just leaving it like that. What we have forgotten is what we abuse. What has been forgotten is when we abuse nature, we abuse ourselves. What we have forgotten is when we abuse nature, we abuse ourselves. David Furlan, in his book, Healing with Earth Energies. And that, to me, is... So what does it include, these energies, that unbalanced energies? They include geopathic stress, fairy line, spirit lines, fairy lines, yin lines, earthbound spirits, other unbalanced energies, such as curses, traumas, imprints, memories, blood on the land, electromagnetic energies, sometimes black chi. So all these energies contribute to the unbalance of the earth in another way, and in some way we are the cause of this in some way or other. And we'll go through them, and we'll talk about them, and we'll try to explain them as best we can to you. So I hope you can see where we're coming from and what we're trying to do. What are the telling symptoms that a place needs and healing, and how do we heal it? Health problems may occur, such as lack of sleep, aches and pains, and even cancer, to name a few. Please note that we stated unbalanced energies weaken the immune system, making the body more vulnerable to disease, electromagnetic and geopathic. Chrome 204 and Vesterberg 207 and Van Paul 1998. These are papers that have been written on these. And if you go to our website, there's plenty more references that documented in science. But let me explain to you about geopathic stress in a very simple way. So the rivers run under the ground in a sense, right? And they give off a magnetic frequency. And in doing so, they give off a frequency of 7.83. That's what it should be at. When that frequency is at that level, it's in harmony with our bodies. So we're in sync with the frequency. So when the frequency becomes distorted for any reason, and we're going into them in a few minutes, what it does, it distorts the frequency around our bodies. Now, the frequency or the energy of the ley line is a lot stronger at night than it is in the day. The moon or the sun kind of tones it down a bit, but it's still there. So we have different ways of working with it and measuring it, and knowing that the toxicity or the imbalance of the line can be imbalanced in a positive manner or in a negative manner. It doesn't matter. It still causes problems. So you're sleeping on it, you're working on it. So what actually happens when you go to bed at night, your body repairs the energies and the blood cells and whatever has to be repaired for the work the next day to re-energize you, to get you going. But because this energy, or white noise they call it, is coming up out of the ground, your body senses it, one thing, and what it's done, it spends the night fighting it off. So over a period of time, years actually, it depletes your immune system, and it can lead, depending on the energy and the level of toxicity from the lines which we measure, it can lead to different types of sickness, and cancer being one of them. Having said that, I've been in houses where people have had 15 years, 20 years, 25 years living in a house of very high energy, of toxicity between electromagnetic energy and cancer, yeah. But then I've been in houses sometimes too where people have been there for 25 or 30 years, and the energy could be the same, and in some way they're immune to it. I remember being in a house one time and the energy was very, very heavy. Couldn't be any heavier. And also, it being heavy, the toxicity of it was heavy too. And I remember saying to the people, I said, how the hell are you still alive here? Why aren't you sick? They said, we've been going to Bernadette O'Connor, the herbalist, and I can tell you that she kept them alive for 21 years. That's the truth. So that's not always the case. Some people are lucky, some aren't. And unfortunately, sometimes we're called in when it's too late, you know. And all we want to do is to help and to heal and to put a smile on people's face. Okay? There's bad luck, curses, trauma on land. You can have bad luck on land. And that would be in the form of curses and different things. And we'll be going into all that in a little while. Animals dying and misfortune, stuff breaking down, trauma on the land. And that would be coming from memory or imprints from another time where there was a battle or where there was something. And another trauma on land can be, and one of the places that was really, really strong for me was Achill Island. When you cross the bridge into Achill, the pain I used to feel there, I mean, there in a while. And that was because so many people had to leave that island. And then you walking, I'm getting emotional now, walking across that bridge, that they were never going to come back again. And I'm talking about maybe the 50s and the 60s. People can come back now. There's an airport to knock, and people are more affluent. But that was one of the memories that will stay with me for a long, long time. But it reminds me of my own place, Connemara, because came from the same situation. We left the 12 pins, and we knew that when we got past Bam Cross, you wouldn't come back. maybe to visit, but that was about it. Hauntings and disturbances from earthbound energies and other energies. Hauntings can vary in degree from very subtle to maybe full on. And lots of times too, you can get energies, earthbound spirits. Sometimes a person builds an extension onto a house and all of a sudden there's an activity in it. And that's because they've interfered with energy in a way, and we'll be talking about it in a while. So, so there's different types of things. Now, there's a lot more I could go into, but I just try to break it down in these couple of categories so that it gives you an idea of what we meet when we look for a house. Bad chi, energy flow, low level of energy in a house. Lots of times when you get low energy of chi in a house, it means that there's a few lads staying in it and they're not paying rent, i.e. Spirits. And it can be to do with other heavy energies in the place that's actually draining the chi out of the house. So chi is vital. It's the life force energy. And what we like to do is to make sure there's a nice flow of energy all through the house, and that is at a high level. And we work with that. So okay. I'll use a lovely picture up there again. So examples from my own work. I just said I'd tell you a few stories at this stage because we're probably getting bored. Now, and we're doing this place for a man in Bearfield, and I'll never forget it. His cattle were dying, and he had tried everything. And of course, I suppose we're one of the last people that they will call onto the land or whatever. But anyway, through desperation, we got there, and there was a curse on it. And the curse had been put on by people who probably wanted the land in a way, and they knew how to do it. So that with the misfortune and everything, at some stage he'd be forced into selling, or he'd have to get out of it. The poor man wasn't enough. I'll never forget him. Anyway, we were able to avert that and to break it. But in the meantime, within 2 weeks, they had redone the energy and put the curse on again. So the same night, I was coming back from a place and I was in a house that was pretty heavy. There was a lot of activity in it, and I was absolutely milled. I didn't want to be going anywhere but to my bed. And he rang me and I said, I'll get to you in a couple of weeks. I can't go to you now. I'm wrecked and this and that. He kept at me. He was very persistent, and I ended up with them that night. And anyway, we did the work, and thankfully we had to do it a bit stronger this time in a way. And he's okay since. But, it just shows you what can happen. And the energy, the person that actually was able to put the energy on, it came from an ancestor way back in his lineage, that his energy was still active, and he worked through him, believe it or not. That's how that one happened. But anyway, it's sorted now, and thankfully the man is happy. The electronic magnetic energies in Roscommon. Now, there's a story told about a young little fella first. And he lived in England. He was 13 years of age. I don't know where in England. And he died of a brain tumor. But when they checked his house afterwards, of course, too late afterwards, he was sleeping on the far side of one side of the wall he was sleeping, the other side of the wall was the fuse box. So he was in a electromagnetic field, and it killed him. And I remember doing a house in Roscommon, up somewhere in Roscommon. And I don't know how the plan and permission was got in this place. I still don't know today. There was a pylon here and a pylon there, and they were going across like that into another pylon. So there was kind of a tripod of pylons. There was a house built in the middle of it. Should never have happened. Anyway, the poor little kids in that house were up and down to the Crumlin Hospital to receive energy. It was unreal. I just couldn't believe that. There could be a house built in a place, and I just pray them kids are okay. But I know anyway, 2 days after I did the work, the woman rang me to say that the baby thing wasn't working, that there was no signal coming from the thing upstairs to the thing downstairs. So that tells me that it neutralized the electromagnetic, and I pray that family is okay. I haven't heard from them since, but unbelievable, that poor family would be put through something like that. There was a girl one time, I'm trying to give you little stories on different aspects of the healing. There was a girl, she slept in a room. She was 10 years of age, and she wouldn't sleep in her bed. And she kept telling her father and mother that the bed was dirty and she couldn't sleep in it. And they tried everything with her. And anyway, they got me in, and I divined it, and I found a ley line going across the room and geopathic stress line going across the room. That's why she wouldn't sleep in it, because she felt the line. Children are very aware of it and very susceptible to it. And lots of times, not all the time, but sometimes babies, cot deaths, if they're sleeping on a ley line, they say that they cause cot deaths as well, because the geopathic alters the state of the person, because the frequency is different and brings you into that space. Oh yeah, I could tell you stories all night. I want stories, but anyway, Trauma on the Land, County Tipperary. I did a place in Tip. And I say to the lads, when I go down to Tipperary to do some of the farms and I see the land and the blue grass that's in it, I'd say if we had an acre of this in Connemara, we'd be killing for it. Unbelievable land. Anyway, the best of luck to them. The battle, I walked into a cornfield and we were walking through the field and you could feel the blood in it. And it was where there was a battle between Cromwell and Irish soldiers or whatever, but they were massacred in it. Now, the thing about blood on land is this. See, I have found in my experience that sometimes when people are dying on the land, right, especially if they're maybe English soldiers, or they could even be Irish soldiers, and I'm going back hundreds of years, maybe a couple of thousand years with them as well, because I've often got this energy that when they'd be bleeding to death, they would curse the land, this cursed land or whatever. So that energy would be on it. But not alone that, when the blood goes into the soil and the blood goes into the grass, that energy is alive in it. And sometimes when people eat product out of that, they can ingest spirit, believe it or not. It's known in other countries, and sometimes it can happen here. So that energy and that trauma can be there with them. So just to let you know that. So there's a few bloody fields around Ireland, lots of places around Ireland that have been, I don't think there's an inch of square mile where there hasn't been a battle one way or the other through our country. But that's just to tell you that. So going back into Cromwell times. Now, the other thing about that in Cromwell times, in any time there's been battles, the soldiers can die, they die sudden, or mostly do, and some of them take a while to die in the battlefield. But they're caught in this matrix of energy, so the battle keeps going on. They die and they go back again till someone like us come along and change that energy. So what people will find then as well, they feel the trauma of the place, or the hurt on the land and the energy. Not alone is there battles going on there, but it's all the trauma, all the fear, all the hurt, the imprint of the energy within it, like the blood going into the ground, whatever, and that memory is in it. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite stories. I'll never forget this young fella, and I hope he's listening tonight. I was called up to, I think it's called Meath or Kildare, I'm not sure which. And there's a young boy. The first time I met him, he was about 8 or 9 years of age. We had to do some work with them. And what was happening was this spirit was with them. But there was only half the spirit with them from his waist up. And he was actually hitting the young fella. He problem sleeping at night, and he would be black and blue and hit. And he used to play on the football team, and he'd be in goal and he'd be pushed, and kids would be given out to him. So he was having a rough old time. So when I went up to meet him anyway, I love telling this story, and he's mad into darts. So I had to play a game of darts with him, and of course he won. And he had all the mannerisms of all the professional dart throwers. He was, the shapes and all the stuff. He was on the big stage. Anyway, when we got into the medicine and into the energy, my medicine took me to Brazil, And I seen where the medicine men were, the spirit, he called him Diego, so I should call him Diego. I seen where they split his soul in two, so he would never incarnate again or reincarnate again, so that he'd always wander in the spirit world. So he was attached to this young fella, and he was banging him. And the reason he was banging him because he wanted him to help him. So anyway, eventually we put the soul back together, and we were able to. Then I said to spirit, I said, like, please show me fully and make, because I could see it, but I didn't know whether it was my mind or whether I was. It was imaginary or whether it was real, because I wanted to be 100% sure that this soul was full. I said, please let me know that the soul is full now and is ready to go. Next to the young lad turned around and said, oh, Jesus Christ, he said. So what's wrong? He said, Diego got legs. So that was my answer. So we're able to move the spirit on, and the young fella was fine after that. And he said to me, he said, Paul, do you know what I'm going to do when I grow up? I said, no. I said, no, what are you going to do? I'm going to be a professional dart thrower, and I'm going to be a ghostbuster. And I hope he will. So, a beautiful story and a beautiful kid. And what I really loved about that situation, his mother and his father were so strong in the energy that they didn't say he was mad. He was imagining things. They went with it. They worked with them. And he had no fear in a way. It was just like he accepted it as it was, and he was dealing with it in his own way. And to me, I'd give him a medal if there was medals for something like that. I just thought he was an absolute little young fella. Oh yeah, famine story. I could tell you many of them, but this one is one that I was talking about there only a few days ago, and so it's fresh in my memory. But this happened many, many years ago. I think it was in Ballyvaughan, and I was doing a house, but in the end there was a fireplace. These were, there were cottages, I think. Anyway, there was a fireplace with stone and whatever. I could see two people sitting in front, a man and a woman. They were absolute destitute, and they were soulless people. They had nothing left to live for. They were just, everything was taken from them, everything was gone, and they were in that space of just, probably waiting to die. But anyway, I said to your man and the woman, I said, this was a famine place, a famine house. They said, no, there's no way. On this land, there was famine. No. Anyway, and I said, well, the stones or something came from a poorhouse, and it's here. Anyway, they did the research, and they came back to me 6 months later. The stones came in from an old famine house. So the spirits of the people came with the stones. They were still attached to that place. And I've seen that before in a place in Mallinhyde where they brought in clay to fill up a site to make it level. They bought more than the clay, and I can tell you. But anyway, that eventually got sorted too. So just to enlighten you with a few little stories. And I think the roses are lovely, do you? They're beautiful. Want to water them when this is over. Different types of energies that cause imbalances in our home or land that we heal. Is that home or land? I cannot see it. Anyway, it'll come up now. Geopathic stress. And I talked a little bit about geopathic stress there a while ago. And basically what it is rivers that run under the ground. The rivers give off a frequency. It should be 7.83. If it's imbalanced, it means it's causing harm to us. So our job is to detect that. We divine for it. We detect it. We can do it remotely. Do a lot of work now remotely because of what's happening. Or we go on site to do it. Now, there's many ways of taking out, neutralizing the energy. Now, the first time I did the course, a long, long time ago, as I said to you, with Joe Mullally, we were taught to divine first, and we worked with copper coils that we put in the ground. And basically what happened when the geopathic frequency comes up out of the ground, right? And the frequency will go up to about 800 feet. So if you had a block of buildings and there was 10 or 12 stories on it, if you take it out in the bottom one, you take it out in the maw, because it moves up like that. So that would when the geopathic would hit the copper, it would divert the energy up into the sky. Now, they put down rods into the ground as well, and I've seen people putting marble into the ground to do it. It will divert it. Actually, often when I'd be working in a line long ago, I would take my 2 divining rods and just leave them one side of me in the line. While I was working in it, I would divert the energy up into the sky so that I wouldn't feel the toxicity and the sickness of it. Because sometimes if you're working in lines for quite a while, you can get pretty sick and pretty weak. The energy, it drains you. But I found working like that, what would happen is, another way I was taught to do it was, of course, to get a crowbar and put it down at the edge of the line. And if you bang the crowbar with a sledgehammer, it'll drive the energy, the frequency of the energy, in maybe 15, 20 yards away from the house, or you can push it back on itself. But that's okay if you do both them things. And I found out over my years that sometimes people who called me back because they'd feel the energy back in the house, and sure enough it was. And what was bringing it back was when someone was building up the road, they'd be using a digger or using something, and the bucket would swing and it would bang the energy back into the house again, or divert it away from where the copper was in the ground and to get in at another angle. So we had to go back and we had to look at what we were doing. And then I found other ways of doing it. A lot of it through ceremony. Would use copper and would use different things at different points, but would do it through ceremony. And then I found that when I was doing houses, how come that the energy was so intense around the houses? And you could walk down the field and you mightn't get a ley line for every 30, 40 yards or maybe whatever down a field. And it wouldn't be as intense as it would be around the house. Till I realized that what we were doing was the crystal body of the auric field of the house, that when we were digging down the foundations and blasting and digging and doing all the things, we cracked the crystal body. So it allowed the energy to come up. And in doing so, it distorted the energy of the thing. So then we had to find other ways to do it, which we did. Now, lots of people will find lines and they'll find them only 2 or 3 feet wide. I've always found them 20 foot wide and more, 30 foot. And the reason for that, sometimes the river can be narrow at the bottom, but when it comes out in a V shape like that, it spreads out. So sometimes if you pull people off a line, off an energy off a line, say your bed is here and the line has gone through here. Well, to be honest with you, you're still sleeping in it. Because I've measured the energy at the edges and I've measured the energy in the middle, and I found very little difference between it. It comes up in a V. And I'd rather be sure to be sure. But we neutralize it. Sometimes it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the energy to clear. And for the simple reason is that when you're living in it for a while, what actually happens is your body becomes used to this energy. Then when we neutralize the energy, sometimes you feel worse before you get better. Now, depending on 68 weeks is kind of a normal thing, but sometimes it can take up to a year, depending on how long you're living in that place. So that's just a little bit on geopathic stress. That's a little way that we neutralize it and heal it. And of course, you can use crystals like black tourmaline, and amethyst is fairly good for, if you put them in the lines, it will help to deflect it. But then again, you could have problems with the thing. And if there's cracks in the aura, they need to be healed as well. Okay. Do you have spirit lines, fairy lines, and yin lines? First time, fairy lines, or spirit lines. Let's talk about spirit lines. Okay, what are spirit lines? Spirit lines are lines that on which the spirits walk. For example, there was famine walks from one place to another where people went to get food. And when they went to get the food, what actually happened was some of the people died on their way. So they're still walking them walks. So that's a famine line. Another story about the energy is, I remember one time a spirit line, a friend of mine, David Furlong, shaman in Isle of Man. And if he's watching, David, hello. Hope you're well, man. And we were doing a job near Athlone. A woman would go to bed at night, all this banging and noise every night constantly was causing hassle. So we went up there, and eventually it came that the soldiers from the Battle of Akron, 1691, were making their way home. Now, why maybe in the years preceding that they didn't cause trouble, but all of a sudden they started making noise. But I believe that at this stage, at some level, they wanted to know that they needed to know that they needed to go home. Lots of times we're moving soldiers from battlefields. We find that if we call their leader, their colonel, their general or whatever, and he usually comes on a white horse, and he just says, lads, it's over, let's go. That kind of takes care of it. It eventually took care of that. We had to go back to that place 2 or 3 times. There was a lot of other little things, but hopefully that lady's okay now. Fairy lines. First time I really came across fairy lines was working down with Catherine McMahon down in Clare, good friend of mine, and she's another feng shui guru. She's done our training with Amanda. Her cousin had a house there, and there was things breaking down all the time. And we went and we were divining around it, and we got different things. But eventually, I just looked up and I could see a fairy fort one end, and I could see a fairy fort along the other way. And the design, I said, okay, let me see if there's a fairy line here. Maybe that's the problem. Sure enough, there was. The fairy line was going through the house. So, like, the fairies weren't too happy with that. And we had to talk to them and explain to them in a way that these people put this house there. It wasn't their intention that they were blocking the fairy line. And that could we do a deal? Drop in a whiskey and divert the road. So we got the county council lads from the fairy line in, the fairies, county fairies, whatever you call them, county council fairies, and we diverted the line around the house and off to so everyone was happy with that. That can happen at times. So sometimes when there's machinery can be breaking down, washing machines, things happening in the house, that can be an activity. Also with spirit lines, just to say that if you get 2 lines crossing in a house, if one line is going this way and the other line is going that way, say, you get what we call a vortex of energy. The same with geopathic stress, I didn't say that. When you get a vortex where 2 lines cross, there's a spiral of energy, and the highest being 32. That's as high as it can get, okay? But with spirit lines, lots of times, not all the time, but sometimes, invariably, if you get 2 lines crossing, there can be activity in the house. It's kind of like, I don't know, there can be disturbance on the lines that maybe some fellas don't agree with other fellas or whatever. But anyway, that can be healed, and we basically take the lines out of the house. Yin lines. These are lines I came across with many, many years ago, and I was doing a house for a guy up in East Galway somewhere. I forget now the name of the place, but anyway, I had to go back so many times because he couldn't sleep in his bed. We tried everything. And in the end, a good friend of mine, Kay Keenan, a medium there in Kilkenny, I just had to ring her and I said, these lines are coming up out of the ground. I can feel this energy. It's like electricity. What is it? She said, Spirit's telling me they're yin lines. So what do I have to do? You ground it back into the earth. And since I started doing that with them, there's been no problem. I've come across them quite a few times since. And I don't know what causes them. I don't know what energy, why is the reason they're coming up at the minute, but they're there, just to tell you. Spirit release or earthbound spirits. These are spirits that are not in heaven. Now, spirits can come in many different guises and forms. Spirits are there because sometimes they have an attachment to the land, the place. Sometimes they have an attachment to the person. Sometimes they have a guilt process over something that happened and they're afraid to move on. Sometimes when they die sudden, sometimes they don't realize they die. For example, I was doing a house one time down in Clare somewhere, a big old Georgian house. And they used to call it the House of the White Lady or some name like that. But anyway, there was this spirit used to walk up the road every evening at a certain time. And people would have seen her and all that kind of thing. But basically what it was, this girl was coming home to see her dad. She was 16, 17, 18 years of age at the time. I'm going back to maybe 1700s. And she got killed on the way home. She died kind of sudden. So she kept reenacting that process of going home. And basically when we talked to her and said, look, you're dead, darling, we'll get your dad to come for you. and he'll bring you home. So her dad came and she loved her dad and he went home. And that's you know, when we're moving spirits, lots of times I don't call on the archangels or God or whatever to come to take the people home, because sometimes people, when they see an angel coming to take them home, they're afraid to go to the angel because they're afraid they'll be judged. But if they call on an ancestor that's in heaven and love them, or a higher vibration, to come and take them home, they will go to the brother, they will go to the sister, they will go to the father, the mother, the husband or the wife. They'll go home, and they'll be brought home, and they'll be brought to their proper place in the universe where they need to go at that time. So, you know, I could tell you lots and lots of stories of spirit release and earthbound spirits. It basically, you know, when you work on the land, you come across spirits. Now, I'll just mention here, I don't know, have it further up my notes or not, I call them ban and cheese of Farentalas. Sometimes you get a man on the land. I'll give you an example. There was this is not a man, but this was somewhere in Clare again. I think it was East Clare somewhere. These people had a heap of cattle. There were lemon, what do you call them? I can't say the word. Anyway, expensive cattle. Lebanese, not Lebanese, Lebanese or whatever. You know what they're, Lebanese. I can't say it. Anyway, but they were dying, one after the other. So they got me in. And anyway, when they got me in on the site, it turned out that the woman that owned the property had died, but the guy that she was married to was married into it. And when he was married in, you know, he was fond of the supping. So when she died, he was left the place, for example, and anyway, he sold it, and he could go having a few pints or whatever. But her spirit was still on the land. And she couldn't understand why these other people were there on her land. And she was angry. And that's why the cattle were dying. So we had to have a chat with her about her being dead, that, you know, that she had to let go of it. And we did a little ceremony with her to let go, and we released her. And she was fine. And the cattle were fine after that. So that's one kind of story. But basically, lots of times I would get men on the land, like a grandfather who handed it down reluctantly to his son. And maybe the grandson has the farm now. But that grandfather, that energy would still be in the place. Little things would be breaking down, and stupid and silly little things would be going wrong on the land and on the place. And it's because he's still there, and he says, that's still my land. What's he doing here? I didn't, you know, he hasn't let it over. And the first time I met a Bananchi was when I was working with Diego in the kitchen of that house that day. There was this burly little spirit of a woman sitting at the fire, and she was really kind of angry, and she didn't like the people being in the house, and she didn't like the woman of the house. Lots of times that happens. And once or twice when we've removed them people from the house and sent them home, the woman of the house that's there now would start crying. And one woman said to me one time, I've been here 30 years, and this is the first time in my life I felt that this was my house. Now, lots of times too, when these Bananchis are around the house, it's been my experience that sometimes they've lost kids, and they don't go without the kids. They wait for the kids. So when I see them, the first thing I start doing is start looking for little kids. There could be 2, 3 little kids, miscarriages or whatever, or deaths that time. And you bring them all together and you bring them home. Electromagnetic energies, I touched on that earlier on, and I was talking to you about the pylons and things, and there is ways that we can neutralize that energy. Thanks be to God. Shown a bit by Spirit, and David Furlong and myself worked a bit with it, and we were able to work it with our 2 different ways that we can work the energies. But what I really want to talk to you about as well is electromagnetic in the house. Lots of places when we go into houses and we're doing the bedrooms and things, there's phones and there's electric clocks and there's a whole heap of stuff around the bed, there's televisions and everything. So that's all, you know, especially the phones, if they're on at night and they're charging and they're doing whatever they're doing. Like if you put a phone to your head, the energy will come out the other side. So basically what you're doing is creating a magnetic field around yourself in your house. I think if you go onto our website, you might see a little bit about it. But it's not right. It's dangerous. And the way the houses are wired in Ireland, as far as I know, they're wired in a loop situation. So it creates a magnetic field. In Germany, that's not allowed because they know about geopathic stress. After the Second World War, Hartmann and von Paul and all these doctors were really on the case there, and they went to the German governments and they were talking about stuff, and they said, look, this causes sickness, that causes sickness, do this, do that. And of course it's law over there now that you get things done, or there in Austria and places. I've had a lot of people come from foreign countries that would insist that when they're moving into the house that it would be done for them. Cauldrons. In Celtic shamanism, there's a thing called the three cauldrons. We have the black cauldron, the red cauldron, and the white cauldron. In the land, I see them cauldrons. I see the black cauldron below the ground. And the black cauldron, to me, is the grounding and the earthing of that place. Right? Now, the cauldron can be turned upside down or sideways or whatever. So that means that the place is unearthed and ungrounded to a varying degree until it's upside down, it's totally ungrounded or whatever, and you get kind of chaos on the place. The place is messy and can never get it tidy. That can be to do with curses and things as well, but believe me, it doesn't help. The red cauldron to me is the power, and that's above the ground. So if that's distorted in any way and not sitting upright in the right way, it means that the power of the place, the energy of the place and the strength is not right, is imbalanced. The white cauldron is above the farm, above the property, and that's to do with the connection to spirit and the energy of the place. So when you balance them energies, what you're actually doing is connecting heaven and earth together and bringing a flow into the place. Kind of touched on them: traumas, memories, imprints, curses, rituals. Traumas are to do with, like, as I said to you about Achill Island or places like that where there's trauma on the land, or where someone was killed in battle, or where there was fights over the land and people didn't get it, and there was bad will in a way that left trauma, and the memories can be in it. Like sometimes I remember walking down into a place in Kanturk one time, and your man said, every time I walk into this place I get angry. There was red coats and whatever fighting in the place, so they were in full battle. So he was picking up the battle energy, he was picking up the fight energy. And also in a very subtle way, memories and imprints can be like this. You're standing at a window and you're washing your dishes, and you're looking out the window, and it starts bringing you back into traumas and memories that you've had before, just in your own personal life. That's because you've left your thought forms above you. And when you walk back into that place, you're connecting to the thought forms again. For example, well known, we go to bed. If we stay in bed in the morning late and we're lying in the bed thinking, invariably, most times we get up in a bad old mood. That's because we pick up the negative thoughts above our head and we start twirling them around in our head. So thoughts are big, and you'll feel them in rooms and you'll feel them in places, and you'll feel the energy of them. The memory can be in the land. It can be of a hurt and of a problem in the land, and it can be imprinted in it. As I said to you earlier on, it can come through the blood that's spilt on it, or it can come in many different ways. Curses. Curses. Yeah, we come across a lot of them. Even today, people know how to do it. I explained to you about the little wonders. We're a house in Tipperary where there was eggs and things put on land, and that's a sure sign of stuff. Up and down the country, you've come across a lot of them, and they wouldn't have been put on, in 5-10 years, or maybe a year or 2 years ago. So there's people out there that can do that. But lots of times with the land, what you find is it goes back to landlord land, and the landlords wouldn't have been liked by a lot of people. And lots of times the landlords were out of the country, and the people that were running the land were their agents, and the agents definitely weren't liked because they were probably Irish, and they were out for what they could get in a way. We're doing one in Cavan, and I don't know if they're into that or not, but I know they won't mind me telling this, but he was losing cattle big time. But when we went back in the inner energy, we found that one of his ancestors was an agent. So there was an awful lot of bad energy and curse put onto that place, and he had to get it healed. And the same lad ended up in hospital, and he was vomiting up black for a few days. They didn't know what it was, but that was the energy coming from him of the curse and of the stuff that was put on the place. There was so much hate put on it. Now, when we're releasing curses a lot of time, I'm not going to go too much into it, but I just tell you, we bring the whole lot together. I call them the actors or the players within the thing, the landlords and the people that put it on. And just know that the people that put the curse on, the community that do it sometimes, what actually happens is they're stuck too. They're stuck too. So everyone has to forgive, and everyone has to forget and shake hands, and we have to break the energy and to release everyone. So the whole ethos and the whole thing and the whole focus of our work is to leave the land back in as a pristine condition as we can. So the first day that the man stepped on it and started to destroy it. Rituals is a thing I come across now and again. And when I talk about rituals, I'm not talking about I'm talking about satanic, dark energy rituals that happen on land and places. And sometimes what happens with them, I found, they find a vortex where two ley lines cross, and they do the ritual on it. So the energy of the ritual will flow in the two directions of the way that the energy is flowing. So if someone has something against someone and they want to do something, if they know the general direction of their place, and if they do dark ritual on it in a way, they can send that energy through that way to the place. Yeah, that happens too. But that's part of what it is, and it's part of what we have to do, to help to heal all this kind of stuff. Peter von Mantis showed me the blessing point many years ago, and the blessing point is not the cauldron, but it's where we connect to the angels in the earth angels, if you want to call them, and we connect them to the angels in heaven, and we connect the angels in heaven to the angels in earth. So there's a connection between heaven and earth, and it brings the medicine of of a holy well to the place. And I always say to the people, I always say to them that if you need to make a wish, you're looking for something, you want to pray, that's the place to do it, because you'll be heard. You'll be heard in heaven. You'll be heard in by the earth and by the energies of the earth. Other things that we look at is the chi levels of the house. Now, the chi levels would be to do with, you see, when you walk in the door, the energy flows in from the main gate into the house, and it whishes like water around inside in the rooms. So if we end up in the middle of the room, we know that the chi balance is right. But if we're pulled along the walls in a way with our divining rod, we know that the energy level in the house is 10. So the chances are that in that room, in that place, that there's a ghost. So he needs that energy, or it could be some other kind of energy that needs that energy to hold its energy in that place. And that's why it's vital to connect and to balance the chi. Sometimes I do remedies for the land and the house. Like a human, they need the remedies, and we operate remedies sometimes. Frequency levels is also a thing we work with. It's something like the chi level. We measure the frequency of the house, megahertz, what it is before the healing, and we see what it is after the healing. And when if the chi level comes in around 95 or 96, we know that we have the house cleared, that it's clear. Ghosts and entities and things that you don't want lads in there that are not paying rent. That kind of thing. This is just a beautiful poem, just to finish up. And I'm just going to tell you a few little stories afterwards, and then we'll be into question and answers, I think. And I came across this from Jim Pathfinder Ewing from Clearing Houses as well. The land and rocks speak if we only listen. The spirits give us visions if we only see. The voices bestow wisdom when we are silent enough to hear. Wouldn't life be grand if every space were fit for a goddess? I just think that's beautiful. And that's what we're trying to do, bring harmony and make the place fit for the goddess energy that's coming back to us again. So when I was talking there, I just wanted to remind you of a story as well about the fairies. I don't think I told you all about the fairies. We told you about, that thing. But one time I was doing a place in Galway as well, and there was awful bad luck in it. And of course it was how they had interfered with fairy forts and knocked the fairy forts out, and not good energy. And in Ireland, that people interfere with them. Lots of times they come to very, very bad endings and sickness and bad luck and even death. But anyway, when we connected with the realms of the fairy people, they demanded that 2 structures would be put on the land, and then that if that was done and finished off, that would suffice and the people would be forgiven in a way. So that was done. So as it was being finished and the energy was being finished and I was getting ready to go because my work was done, the fairy said to me, she said, "We'll release them now." So what do you mean, release them now? Every soul that died in the village from that day till the day that was cleared, they held their energy till the thing was released. I used to run and I said to him, I bet you nothing ever happens in this village. Everything is dead, it's stuck, it's thing. He said, how do you know? So the fairies are after telling me. So there was no movement in it, in a way. Another village in County Clare where there was 3 ring forts behind an area I was doing. And the middle ring fort, the energy in the middle ring fort was fighting with the lads on the right and the lads on the left, and the lads on the right and the left were friends. The lads in the middle were fighting with everyone. Energy was the same in the village. The same in the village. It was the same. It reflected out in the village. But anyway, we tried to make peace with the lads and peace offerings to the fairies in the middle. And I never heard again what happened with that. But anyway, hopefully it worked out. Now I'm just looking here to see if a favourite story is, the Ghostbuster. I told you that one. Another night I was in a house, and the mother asked me in, and God love her, the 3 daughters were saying, "Oh, what a crack getting this fella in a Ghostbuster." And they were laughing and said, "Mum, you're stupid," and all this kind of thing, and she was under pressure. But anyway, I was doing a little bit of work, and at that time I took out my pendulum to make sure the room was clear, and I was asking a yes or no answer to the question. And when they seen the pendulum and they seen it working in the rotation, they said, "Oh, gee, you're just like the one on Charmed, some film they used to watch on television." And once they seen the pendulum working, I was accepted. And I said to the young one then, I said, "Will you do me a favour?" She said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Will you open all the windows there to let the ghosts out? It was a real bad night. You opened all the windows." So a bit of fun. Another night I was working again in a house, and I was standing in the corner, and I was kind of in a meditative thing, and the divining rod was in my hand, and I was looking for a yes or a no answer for a question. Basically, I cleared a spirit, and I wanted to find out, was the spirit gone? And the woman said to me, "What are you doing?" Because the rod was like that, my eyes were closed. And I said, "Tell the truth, I just asked my spirit guide, is the spirit here or is the spirit gone? Just want to make sure that has gone home, that's gone to heaven, or wherever it needs to go." And the next thing, the rod started to move slowly like that, right? And the woman said, "Oh, Jesus." She thought the spirit caught the top of the rod and she was splinting it back into me. So, Baranchi, I said to you. Another thing I would like just to share with you that about land healing, clearing, or whatever. It's all about humility and it's all about respect. When we go to a place, we bring our ancestors with us. So we introduce our ancestors to the ancestors of the land and of the place. Some of them may be your ancestors, and some may not. To be going back generations, whatever. Doesn't matter. But basically, the whole ethos of that is, if I go up to your house and knock on your door and introduce myself, I'll come in peace. And if I smile, I'm nice, I'll get a cup of tea. If I don't, I won't. But same thing with the ancestors. When we work with the ancestors, I introduce my ancestors to the ancestors of the land and the peace. I tell them that I come in peace to help them in whatever way we can and whatever they want done, so that we can help to clean and heal the energy of the place and release whoever has to be released. And lots of times when you do that, that's all that needs to be done. Well, not all that needs to be done, but they know they're not under threat. They know you come in peace. They know you come to help them. And my ancestors will talk to theirs, and they will talk to me. And the energies will come through in whatever way it has to be. Just read this thing again. The land and the rocks speak if we only listen. The spirits give us visions if we only see. The voices bestow wisdom when we are silent enough to hear. Wouldn't life be grand if every space were fit for a goddess? I just think that's beautiful. Okay. If you have a question for me, I think Melanie will organise that now. And if you missed any of this, you can. If we didn't answer all your questions, what you can do is infos@pathwayteaching.com. This will be actually recorded and put up on our YouTube channel, Pathway Teaching. And if you're looking for a house to be done, you can pathwayteaching.com and use house code, because there's a discount. Okay, so House 100 is the code. Melly's here beside me whispering. Okay, so we see if there's questions. I don't know what she's going to do now. Is there a question, son?
No, I have to go into it now.
Okay. We're going into them now, so just bear with us for a minute. Stop share. Okay. Chat. There's the...
How do you measure the land regarding megahertz?
How do I measure the land regarding megahertz? I use the David Hawkins scale of consciousness from 0 to 1,000. That's how I measure it. And it's when you use a divining rod or use a pendulum, if you're a diviner, you'll understand what I'm saying. But you can use the rod, like the shoulder's 0, the shoulder's 1,000, and the rod will show you 500, 600, 700, whatever. That's how I measure it. That's pretty simple. It's thing. Any other question?
What was the name of the book?
Oh yeah, the book I mentioned on geopathic stress. David Furlong's book, Healing with the Earth Energies. An absolute gentleman. The book can be hard enough to get in that it's been out of print so many times, so many people. I think every diviner, every house healer would have one of these books. Limousine, thanks very much for that, Carmel Moore. Thank you so much. I got stuck there. It's not often you see a kind of Maraman get stuck, but sure as it. I hear Bearfield, when you told the story, the audio, could you tell it again? The story. Oh yeah, sorry, just to repeat this for someone in Bearfield about the story. It's Bearfield or somewhere else around Clare there. No, it's just about a farm being cursed and cattle dying on it, and how we had to go and to heal that farm. And after 2 weeks after it being healed, basically very quickly, there was a curse put back on it again. But the next time we went, we put stronger medicine on that. With stronger medicine, it didn't happen again. If you were buying an old house and going to knock it, rebuild it, when was the best time to get the house done? Before you knock it, and respect the spirits of the house, or first, or do it? Look, I always say this. People ring me, I'm buying a site, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You're going to build a house on the site, you're going to do the work. Do the work, call us when it's over, and we'll clear it all, because that's the best way of doing it. If we go out and clear it and do things on it, and you start digging into the ground and start disturbing energy again, no control over that, you're only getting us back. Better to do the one run of it. That's my experience, and that's the way I do it. As I also work in the field. Hello, Jenny. I live close to a village that also lacks progress and movement. Quite a large area on the wild Atlantic coast, and the energy is stagnant there. What do you work with large areas that you can offer any advice to me? Thanks, Jenny. Jenny, yeah. If you work on large areas, you know, if you take, say, a county, for example, or if you take an area within a county, like, say, for example, Connemara, where there's been a lot of hardship, a lot of pain, a lot of thing. Work with the spirit of that place and ask for the spirit to come and work with you, and then work through it in that way. And if there's any problems, please give me a ring and a thing, and maybe I'll be able to help you with it in some way or other. What is the name of the book you mentioned, Patrick Stress? Yeah.
There's one by Von Paul.
Oh, there's one by Von Paul as well, Doctor.
About $300.
It's about $300. He's telling me here. Someone said about something about Feng Shui there. What did they say?
Yeah, so it was just what was the name of the book by Amanda? It's AmandaCollins.com. It's Amanda Collins training.
Yeah, Amanda Collins. I don't know if she has a book out there. It's AmandaCollins.com is her website. And just when you're talking to her, just say you can say I recommended her very highly, and you know, she's a lovely girl to work with. For moving house, how do you close the energy? And bring the lifetime memories with you. Have to move, but want to bring good energy. Yeah, lovely one.
Ceremony.
Yeah, can do through a little ceremony. But you know what's a lovely thing to do? Joe Mullally, I've seen doing it first. Joe, he's done it where he's lit the fire in one house and brought the coals from one house to the other to bring the energy to that house, which is a beautiful way. But what you can do is get a jar, get a vessel, and just smudge the place with the intention of all the good energy and all the good memories that you have in the place that you're in, and you want to bring them, and ask to be put into the bowl and to take them. But when you do that, don't forget you leave a void in the place. So please put a blessing for the people coming into that place before you leave it. You know, that's the way I would do it. Is there such a thing as one big soul being?
One soul being several dimensions.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about there. That means a soul being splintered and in different dimensions. Let me give you just a little story on that in a way, and it might help you. And we're doing soul retrieval one time for someone. And this girl was coming to me for a while, and she was in an awful way. But anyway, when I went out to get the soul part for her, we were riding on a horse right down through the thing, and she brought me to this boundary. And at the boundary, the land she was in was absolutely barren, by the way. And when we got to the boundary, there was these guards on the fence. Let's say it was like crossing into another country. And she said, "I won't be allowed in there." And I said, "You're with me, you'll get in." And then we got through. And we went into this place that was lush, and we found another part of the same spirit. The spirit was splintered, and they were in two different places, two different dimensions. And what actually happened was to bring them together to make them whole, so to go. So then at another level, lots of times too, when people cross over, say, for example, say a soul crosses over, and say I cross over and I'm waiting for Melanie, and Melanie comes across maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years later, whatever. I seem to be in a different place because you never meet up. So what I always do in that space, when I find whoever I find first, I cross them over, then I bring them back to get that other person. So when you're talking about a soul being in many things, I guess you're talking about the soul being splintered in many different dimensions, and you can do that. Your guides will help you with that, and they will help to bring back. All you have to do is just to work with that, Jan. It'll work. And if there's any questions on it, please email me on it. Use tuning forks, so I would love to hear a story about your rattle. Well, I'm a shaman, so I work with the rattle. Tuning forks, I use a sound as well sometimes, and the rattle is great to break energy. And what we do with our tools is we prime them, we awaken the spirit within the tool to do the work. So we're not doing the work. The spirit of the energy is doing the work. And I know the sound, because I'm teaching some shamanic stuff online, problems with drums and rattles on the thing. But it's great for breaking energy. During a recent thunderstorm, most houses in the locality had damage to their phones. We had no damage in our house. And I wonder if it was to do with the copper around the house. And could well be the copper around the house. Or some of the houses may not have had earthen rods down through the houses. I remember in olden times, with our earthen rod was going down through the land or down into the ground, and we used to put a jam jar over it. And when youth lightning hit the house, to break the jam jar. If it didn't, the jam jar would still be there. So that could well be, I don't know. But I reckon there's an earthen rod in your house, and maybe the earthen rods on other people's houses weren't were damaged or something. Okay, my mum had this dream on repeat in different times over the years, but recently mentioned it to me. My auntie passed years ago with little kids in my mum's dream. My auntie stayed to be near her sons, but did not in her house, but in this little shack of a house nearby, and didn't want to be seen. She stayed to watch over, but when my uncle moved with the kids, she says in the dream she's bound to the house. Could this be the case? Yeah, bound to the house. It's like what I said earlier on. It could be that she has an attachment to that place, and also that the kids, like, I don't know if the kids are in spirit now or if the kids are still alive, but she didn't let go. But again, a little ceremony would release that, and it's just bringing it together. And the best thing to do to help to release her is to call on her ancestors that are in heaven, and that will help her. What are the remedies used that I can help to heal house? You can use the backflower remedies. You can use the Australian remedies. I make my own remedies. They're made from different things on the land and things I've worked with, like ragwort root, lovely rose, which brought in the Archangel Michael energy of different things, and I use them with intention. You can use anything like that, or you can use aromatherapy oils or whatever. Just douse for them, see what's needed for the place, and the place will tell you. So before we move somewhere, could be anywhere in the world, do you do distant check if it's a good place, the house? You can do that by divining for it or thing. But what I do if I'm moving anywhere in the world or going anywhere in the world, we're living here in the Azores now, we do a ceremony to connect with to introduce again our ancestors to their ancestors, say that we're coming to that country, and this is who my ancestors are, my father's side, my mother's side. This is my miscellaneous ancestors with me. And we connect with the energy of that land through the ancestral energy. And we ask for help and blessings that when we go there. So that's what I would do with that now. How can the same family line have successful person as someone with terrible luck? Yeah, good question. How some people can be very successful, another person can be. There could be an attachment and that person. There could also be, like when I talk about attachment, there could be a ghost, but that ghost could also be cursed, or that person could be cursed, because the curse can work in 4 different ways. It can work on an individual, on a family name, on a place, or on an item. So need to look at that one. So I'm a homeopath, so I also use remedies for clearing the land and the houses, buildings. I hope, I hope they do. Silica is a great one. I know that I've used a couple of times. I put it in water as a remedy to take unwanted things or foreign bodies out of a place. Live on land that was mined, tunneled underneath. I live in a council house. I feel it was built the wrong way around, vibrates. How would I ground it, balance it? See, if it's built on something underneath it, what I'd recommend is to put mirrors under them, small mirrors, to reflect back down into the ground. As built the wrong way around, you'd need to talk to Amanda maybe on that, because that could be, if you're talking about a wrong way around, that could be what we call a reverse house. Could be bad for people, bad for money. If that's, I forget now my notes, but it could be something to do with that, and you need to have a look at that. Yeah, but the same person, it's terrible. Look, I think I've answered that one. Please explain a little more about blessing point. Blessing point. We douse for it. It's a specific spot on the land or in the house that sometimes we'll find it in the back garden, sometimes we'll find it at the front, maybe it'll even be in the house. So what we have to do when we find that is to activate it. We activate it by connecting with the spirits below, to the angel energy below, and the earth angels, and we visualize that energy coming up through us and going all the way up to heaven and higher if possible. And we connect with the angels and archangels, and we see that energy connected and coming down through us and into the ground. You'll feel the vibration of it. So then heaven is connected to earth. The radius of the blessing point will be about 6. I always say, if you put your 2 hands out like that, out wide, fingertips, and just do a circle, that's the radius of about 6-8 feet wide, and that's the blessing point. Why would a young child be extremely angry every morning, even after a good night's sleep? Could it be a spirit attached? It could be a spirit, or it could be the thought forms in the room, like I said before, where that energy is floating around the room. The first thing I would do is I would smudge the place, smudge the room. So how do you smudge the room? Get a bit of sage. You have to waken up the spirit of the sage. The sage, the American Indians, white sage, put the sage to sleep. Ask the spirit of the sage to become awake, so that it will do the work to clear the thought forms and the energy out of the room. When you're walking around the room, go around clockwise, up and down the walls, wave it up and down the walls. Say a prayer or a chant as you're doing it, right around, especially the doors and windows, and all the ways around to the door. Then when you've done that, come back into the middle of the room. Hold the sage in your hand. Only use a small little bit. Don't use the big things that will smoke you out of it. Just a small bit of sage, a leaf will do. And watch the sage. You'll see the smoke go. And when the smoke starts to go up straight, the room is balanced. Try that first. If a ghost gets lost in the fog, we have the comedian on from Cork, Ger Ford. Ger is a good friend of mine. Does the shamanic work in Cork, and if you want a house cleared or some energies done, man, that's the man to ask. The question he's asking: if a ghost gets lost in the fog, will he be missed? Yeah, very good.
In the chat, there's a few in the chat.
Okay, at the end of the last meditation at Ishnach, you mentioned healing for both areas of Tubber and Garth. What was that about? I forget now what it was about, to tell you the truth, but that would have been something linked with the medicine that I was working with. In probably what I was talking about. I know that the fairies from Munster used to meet around Newmarket and Ferguson, around that area, and head on all the ways up to Galway to go fighting with the fairies from Galway. Maybe that's what I was on about. But I know sometimes that when I'm in the energy and then some stuff comes, and then when it's over, it's gone. Can you heal?
Curses from families.
Yeah, curses from family. Jimmy's, I know Jimmy well. Jimmy is a good friend of ours in Waterford. Yeah, like as I said to you, a curse, and Jimmy, you know this yourself. A curse can be on a person, it can be on a place, can be on a person, can be on a name. That's the name of a family. It can be on an object like land, or it can be on a picture or on something like that. But sometimes what happens with curses, right? It took me a while to find this out. Sometimes we can be working on the name of the person and the name of the stuff. But sometimes what happens, a person can marry into a family and bring that energy in with them. So sometimes you have to go back and find out where it is and heal it from there. I live on land. What? That was mined. A lot of tunnels. Yeah, I talked about that, yeah. Or balance the house. I felt it was the wrong way around. Yeah, we talked about that, yeah. Yeah. The poor old ghost got lost in the mist. Yeah, poor ghost. The proposed new bypass will take out many trees and one house down from me. I told the council that this area is fairyland. No notice taken. If they cut those trees, the land be affected. I have fairy garden on my land. We live in peace. Yeah. You know, the council don't care. I remember I did a house one time, a council house in Cork. It actually was made television and a few things about a haunted house. And years later, I met the guy that he wouldn't give them a house. He thought what I was doing and what they were doing was mad. Sometimes it can be like that. But what I would do, why don't you make a little place for the extra fairies to come in and tell them that they can have room around your place? I think that would work. How do you close a portal? I don't know what kind of portal you're talking about. Is it to do with? Yeah, is it to do with ghosts? Is it a geopathic portal? Is it a spirit line portal? Is it people always drawn to where it is and standing for long periods of time? When it's very active, you can see people always drawn to where it is and standing for a long period. So is that spirits that are standing in it, or is it people that actually go to it? Because if they're being drawn to it in a way, it may be good and it may not be bad. Okay. I'm just not too sure of what you're trying to say. But if it's a portal that has negative energy, right, and it's bringing in negative stuff, you can ask your guys and the spirits to come that deal with that kind of stuff to come and close it. But if not, it can be sticky. You need to get someone to do it, to be honest with you, if it's dark, because if you start messing with stuff like that when it's heavy, you can get an attachment or something. We might get your Ford that's lost in the mist to come back. But if you want to email me more about that, please do, and we'll answer the best way we can for you. Down to our house last year, Paul, I felt there was an old woman in one of the rooms upstairs. Thought he had left. We got the healing done as we had a leak from next door, which was damaging our house for the second time. Fortunately, they're still the same position. The house was not still being fixed, and we're still waiting for the legal matter to be dealt with. Is there a reason for this old lady still being in the house? Okay. Let me see. I feel no. And I think maybe for you to do it, in that you go up to this old lady and you just say to her, look, this is my house, and what we need to do is, we need to release you and you release us, and ask on our ancestors that are in heaven to come and again to release her. And just ask. And first of all, I would smudge it, like I said to the lady before. And when you do that, just try that. Just ask for this lady, just ask in love and in peace for this lady to go. And if not, please email me. And escort her back into the light, yeah. And escort her back into the light too, yeah. Of course, they all go to the light. That's what I always say to them when I put the spirits home. I ask that to go to their proper place in the universe, because there's places they may need go, their vibration may need to be calibrated before they can go to the next level or wherever they need to go. So we have no judgment on anyone or on nothing at that. Is there anything else? I think that's it. I want to thank you very much for tonight. Really enjoyed it. Was a bit nervous about doing it. And I hope everyone got something out of that in some way. I tried to share it as best I could with you. If there's any questions or any other stuff you want to connect with us on email, and you want to connect us on our there's another one coming there. Louise, how are you? How are things? Thank you, Louise. I hope New York's treating you well. We can do the rest of the questions by email, and we'll do that. I hope I helped you. I hope I'm just giving you an insight of my own experiences in this field, and sometimes I've learned the hard way. But the only way you learn this business is to get good training. As I said, I listed my teachers initially. I had 5 or 6 good teachers, and no matter how many teachers you have, unless you get out and do it, you'll never learn it. So thank you very much. If you want to contact us on the website or anything, please pathwayteaching.com, and email us if you need us. Thank you. Good night. Slán.